This is Jezebel. Say hi, everybody, Jezebel. Say hi. Say I really don't like being up here in my dad's lap. I'm a big girl. I'm not even 5 months old and I weigh 50 pounds. So, yeah, this girl's going to be a moose. And she's already ornery. But, we're having fun. So, that's who's stealing the show. Anyway, so Amy Woods, my friend and former coworker, worried about my daughters in this insane living arrangement. Dupree's husband, who's a convicted felon, and disturbing reports about Elizabeth at school, have had me concerned from the very beginning. And I've admonished this court again and again, warned them about the potential for neglect, abuse, drug abuse, neglect, domestic violence. All ignored, all not significant enough in the court's opinion to grant me any type of communication with my biological daughters so that I could protect them or participate in their lives in any way. So, in November 2012, while represented by Keith Bruno, remember, we go all the way back to November 2012 with Kangaroo Keith here representing Kristen, now the presiding judge in this matter, not any longer. When they wrote this, he was. Kristen Dupree obtained a child custody order by default, a child support order by default, but that child support order Kristen applied for herself, and an order of protection by default while Megan was incarcerated at the State Correctional Institution in Graterford, Pennsylvania. I remember being served with those documents on that day. It was a mess. Oh my God. Now they got me on a technical parole violation because I left the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and they knew it. So the technical parole violation initiated an investigation into the allegations Kristen made against me, and that in itself was enough to cause them to hold me for an additional 8 months. So I did 14 months at that time. Um, wow. The arrangement they had, obviously, and now this all plays out, and what have been warning for the last 8 years, and why that petition from 2014 is included is because it was blocked by Lawless at the time. And that's when he started taking these actions against me. So we go all the way back till 2012. But 2014 was the first, January of 2014 was the first time I came back up to Plattsburgh and attempted to file for any type of joint custody or visitation or anything. And Lawless threw me in jail. So, using the identities of Elizabeth, Victoria, and Aurelia Maiden to commit federal and New York State income tax fraud and Medicaid fraud, there are multiple counts of insurance fraud, breach of fiduciary trust, forgery, harassment, assault and battery, and multiple terroristic threats directed at John Maiden. The New York State Department of Taxation and Finance has investigated the tax fraud and verified my allegations to be true. But to this date, make no mistake, 10 years later, no one from Clinton County Court of any type, integrated domestic violence, family court, support court, anything, has ever requested, proof about what Kristen said and how it contradicts the tax returns made by her mother and her aunt. And God knows who else. I don't know when she stopped committing this fraud. It's usually not something Kristen would stop until someone stops her. So who knows what other things she's done. It should be investigated again. There's reasonable cause. Um, anyway, so the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance has investigated the tax fraud, and it's been reported, but nobody in the court ever looked at it. In 2012, while Dupree was represented by Keith Bruno in Clinton County Family Court, the petitioner John Maiden believes and shall demonstrate the gross miscarriage of justice and denial of his basic parental rights all the way back till January of 2014. Since that time, Bruno, Lawless, District Attorney Andrew Wiley, the Clinton County Department of Social Services, Clinton County Child Protective Services, and several attorneys appointed to represent Maiden's children are complicit in the conspiracy and actions used to defame Maiden and manufacture allegations against him that have been used against him to cover up their failure to protect Maiden's daughters from these egregious violations of his parental rights and protect Kristen Dupree/Carnahan from criminal prosecution. Now, I know who paid for a lot of this. Ivana Mayazek was the money behind Kristen paying, Alan Cruikshank for legal representation. Had it not been for that money, this would not have lasted this long. Kristen could not have withstood this without all of the connections and all of the, action, everything that Alan's done to represent her. Alan's the kind of guy, If he represents you, you want him on your side. Let's be clear about that. I mean, he's a good advocate if he's your attorney. If he's on the other side, you're sick of looking at him in about 5 minutes. So that's okay. That's the adversarial relationship. I can walk out of the courtroom with Alan and shake his hand and go back in there and try to, persuade the court otherwise. But it's rigged, so I'm not really doing anything. But from playing sports all of my life, there's a mindset that when I look at the courtroom as if it's, walking onto a football field or a basketball court or a baseball diamond or a track. Um, and I like to compete on any level, just doing just about anything. So I can walk in there with that mindset of competition. But then when I leave, I don't hold grudges. I am not really capable of that. Anyway, so presently, Bruno's the judge. A judge absolutely may not preside over cases where the judge has a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party and or judge served as a lawyer in the matter of controversy. Yeah. All denied for years and all supported in every corrupt, discriminatory, prejudicial way by Cheryl Maxwell. Let me say this again. That's why the next part of this is going to be the order to show cause to remove Cheryl Maxwell. And I won't have to look far to get a couple people to come into court and support my allegations. The attorney who represented Kathy Dupree and Katie Rock is named Alan Weinrob. I'll just subpoena him, or I'll just invite him to come to court and buy him lunch or something, and he can come and tell the court what he sees, because it was obvious from the very beginning, especially when that temporary custody order was written by Cheryl Maxwell, as to what was going on here. Because there's nothing enforceable in that temporary custody order that would make the children have to stay in New York State. It was deliberately written without any of the basic information that provides the whole structure to a custody order. Maxwell knows what she's doing. That was deliberate, like I said. So now this stuff is intervening. Let's be clear here. Again, let me paint this in the box. Under the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, okay, is Article 5. Article 5A is about home state jurisdiction. The UCCJEA is agreed to by 49 states. And during that time, what I was able to do, because the court is attempting to run out this 6-month clock, is to annex the two petitions that I submitted earlier in 2022, in April of 2022, against Kristen, and then in June of 2022 against Lynn Ormsby. So I annexed both of those petitions under an order to show cause, and the associated affirmation is what I'm reading from, and that's what's being presented to the court as a priority measure. Now, God knows what law this will do. So I don't know how to go public with this. I need someone's help to go public with this. But, all right. So, since 2012, Dupree Carnahan has deliberately lied to this court, perjured herself on numerous applications to this court, falsified testimony, misrepresented the facts involved in some twisted effort to punish John Maiden and deny him fundamental rights as a father and guardian of his daughters, all of which have been permitted and endorsed by Lawless and now Bruno, who are responsible for the alienation of Maiden from his daughters. Without the acknowledgement by Bruno of Kristen Dupree/Carnahan's criminal manipulation of this court and false testimony since 2012, Maiden humbly asks Bruno to recuse himself from this matter and either grant, we're way past that, but I'm reading from this document that I wrote back then, and either grant Maiden full custody of his daughters or allow Maiden to remove this matter to the jurisdiction of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where Maiden filed a child custody petition in July 2012 that should have superseded this crap going on in New York while Pennsylvania was still considered the home state. But what they intentionally did was then run out that 6-month clock until November so that strengthens their claims, and then they can just say, oops, look, the girls have been here long enough. We really don't want to, make any changes to their routine. They're already enrolled in school. We've got all this set up. And now that there's a fourth daughter, we don't want to separate them. So that's their case. But they've been ignoring me for so long that all this damage that's been done, I really need to talk to my children. I really need to inform them as to what's going on. And, there's going to be a massive civil suit against New York State and Clinton County. This is too easy. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. So Dupree's criminal manipulation of this court and false testimony since 2012, asked Bruno back then to recuse himself and either grant Maiden full custody. My God. This is way too long to read. So Kristen used all these men, different sexual partners. Sounds familiar, right? Surrogates used by her back then to terrorize and threaten maiden while under her sexual control. Now Richard Carnahan, I guess, is getting similar treatment, or maybe Kristen is with him. I don't know. I can't tell. No one's heard from Kristen or seen her since November 4th. We're now at November 11th. So these egregious acts by Kristen disqualify her from any further custodial relationship. And I was writing this in 2014. Imagine now, 8 years later, she's lost custody. And people had told me that, look, if what I was saying back then was true, that I would just have to wait and she would ultimately, um, you know, what's the right word? Blow up. Self destruct, I guess is the right term. So the petitioner, me, has reported this matter to the New York State Judicial Board of Conduct, the New York State Attorney General, the New York State Inspector General, and the New York State Bar Association, and waits any decision. These are all lawyers. They cover up for each other, better than stink on shit, boy. I mean, they'll bombard somebody, like they'll tell you, come on in. If you need an accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, let's ask for it. I say, hey, I'm a disabled veteran. I do need some accommodation here. Can you please facilitate the, reintroduction of my presence into my daughter's lives? And they say, fuck you. That's the way they do it in Clinton County. Thank you for your service. Oh, they have a knife buried in your back. Oh my God. So I seek release by reassignment of all matters presently before the Integrated Domestic Violence. This is Timmy Boy getting on his high fucking horse and dragging things into Integrated Domestic Violence court at the time so that he could, increase penalties against me with these bullshit allegations of domestic violence. That was his game. That's still his game. If he could do this, he'd do it again. That's who we're talking about. Recognition of the failure by Clinton County authorities in this matter must be recognized and remedied so that Maiden can reassert his parental rights and criminal actions be taken against Kristen Carnahan. This is 2014. Here we go. We zoomed to 2019. The heading for this one: known by Clinton County and covered up. So this is 2019. I zoomed you up to here because this is with that cast of characters that contains Cheryl Maxwell, Alan Cruikshank, Keith Bruno as the judge. Now, we just came out of a shit show where, they're trying to lock me up because they saw me in church on Sunday before Christmas. And that became something that Kristen sought to punish me for. What an amazing atrocity this was. I went in and asked for an order of protection, to stop Kristen from doing any of this. And you know who Lawless allowed to come into court behind me? Cruikshank. Alan Cruikshank sat right behind me with a stenographer's pad taking notes as I was giving testimony as to what happened that day. And do you know where that information then reappeared, against my timeline or using my timeline against me? Was in a filing by Kristen like 2 days later by Cruikshank. That's how crooked they are. I still remember that. It was bad. So we zoom up to 2019. Harassment of John Maiden with multiple fraudulent legal actions taken to cause me 100% service-connected disabled veteran of the United States Air Force, causing me extreme distress related to the chronic debilitating effects of numerous orthopedic and neurological disabilities and deliberately inflicting harm on Maiden. These are hate crimes. This is Clinton County. These people deliberately inflicting as much pain as they can on me. And as I said before, even going before them when I was diagnosed with cancer and seeking to communicate with my children was ignored. And all of this would still be, hush hush, but those precipitating events in May when Ricky and Kristen went off are why we find ourselves here today. I'm not even really going to read anymore. Everything that went on since 2019 is really well documented by me, of course. I mean, God, this goes on for another 20 pages and, walks us all the way back again. So that affirmation is strong. That's as much as we need to talk about the order to show cause and the associated affirmation. Now, what you see here in the next two things are the massive documents. This is the one that's annexed. Now, I annexed two petitions. One of the petitions I annexed was from um, April 2022, as you can see on the signatory page down here. So that's the first motion for recusal and contempt of court that I annex in the order to show cause. And there is, of course, another affidavit associated with that one. I'm not going to read it. Just letting you know how this is organized. So this is the first petition from April of 2022 against Kristen that's annexed by me. And that, of course, includes, just so much documentation, so much damning evidence. It's blatant what Clinton County has covered up, and why even in Albany, man, they chose not to dig into this because it really looks bad for Clinton County. I gotta say, I'm not like trying to make up anything here. I mean, look at this, blocked by lawless 2014 Clinton County. We go all the way back. I am the petitioner in the above entitled proceeding in my mailing address. This is at my mom's house, 3041 Runnymede Drive in Plymouth Meeting. Man, so this is all part of that cover up. This is all lawless, making sure that this never, made its way up into Clinton County. That's one level of bullshit. Then we get to the next one. Now this one's really good. Now, mind you, I have electronic versions of all of these documents, and I've paid big money to create digital versions of all of this. So we are heading into territory here where I've got to get somebody to take this information public with me. But anyway, in the next section, this is just an example of, a summons of where we were in the process at the time. And, it includes some statement, I guess, by Lynn Ormsby as well. I put it in there. Cheryl Lynn Maxwell, 75 Court Street. I don't know what she's doing here. You never know. So my response, like I said, I never let anything go by without responding. My response was this lovely little document, which is annexed, by the original order to show cause under the UCCJEA and trying to be swept under the rug by lawless. This is the second petition that's annexed by that order to show cause. And this one includes a motion for custody of the minor children against Lynn Ormsby. It includes, messages that Elizabeth had sent that I learned. What's going on at the bottom there? Do you see all those tabs? Those are tabs relating to the cover-up of various crimes by the different agencies of Clinton County. And I'm not going to go into what those crimes are because we're coming up on 18 minutes in the second video. The first one was already 20 minutes long. But all those tabs, across the bottom are all examples of, failure to act and just other ignorance by Clinton County. So that's what they're going to have to deal with. And that's what has made a priority by putting all of this under the umbrella of the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act. And hopefully this will get me some relief. Like I said, I don't expect much anymore. I've got, bigger things to worry about. You can see her down there? My pup. Yeah. Anyway, I'm healthy. I think my daughters are okay in Alabama, but there is absolutely no reason for me to have ever been separated from them except through the actions by Kristen and by this court, which have to stop. And I want to see my girls, and I want custody immediately. And I'll work through arguing with Elizabeth. I'll argue with Victoria. We can have discussions. They need to know what's going on. And then we'll work our way back to their mom. We got to get Kristen some help. I'm hoping that I can find where she is, or that she'll come in the next time she runs out of money. And, maybe I can get her some help. So it's my wish on this Veterans Day that men and women like me who are put in these situations would get better treatment by the people who tell you thank you for your service. And that never has happened in my case. This is an atrocity, a gross miscarriage of justice, and ongoing state-sanctioned child abuse by Clinton County against my daughters, Elizabeth, Victoria, and Aurelia Maiden, and their little sister, Brinley Carnahan. sanctioned by Charles Maxwell, Keith Bruno, Timothy Lawless, Alan Cruikshank. So I'm ready.